Each time I start a car build, I always want to take things further than the last time. It's the nature of the beast, it seems. I complete a project car, which requires learning new skills, or at least honing already acquired skills, and it's this aspect that pulls me towards finding the next project so I can keep progressing. It can be quite addicting because I always feel like I can do it even better on the next one. This was the exact motivation that compelled me to pick up this 2002 STI swapped Subaru WRX. After several days of tearing it down, I started to notice a trend. Not only did it smell of vape juice that seemed impossible to get rid of, the quality of work seemed very poor and sometimes downright negligent. Look at this. See that bolt sticking through right there? Hopefully you guys can see that. That's supposed to have a big ass nut on the end. Things like turbo bolts being only slightly more than hand tight and crucial suspension hardware completely missing was just the beginning. After finding so many problems, I decided it would be smart to pull the heads and have a look inside. Right in here and right there. These are like grooves. Because the scoring was so extensive, I knew this block was likely not going to last and needed a fresh rebuild. After sending things out to Outfront Motorsports for machine work, I was ready to build my first block and hopefully give this car another chance to make some real power. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So as you can see, got all this stuff laid out because today we are going to be putting that short block together, hopefully. I say hopefully because I've never done this before, and so it is possible that I've overlooked something and have either forgotten to like order a part, or possibly I ordered the wrong tool, I don't know. But I think I have all my ducks in a row. And I'm pretty sure I have everything to make this happen. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of show you what I have here and what we're going to try to accomplish first and foremost. So I've got my STI nitrided crankshaft here. Manly, I think they're just H-beam rods. And so what we're gonna be doing first is measuring out the crankshaft, and obviously the rods as well. And then once we get that done, we will grab the block and we will measure out the center of the block as well. In order to do all this, I have all these tools laid out. This is a micrometer, these are bore gauges, this is your calipers. What I have over here is just some machinist blocks. They're 1 by 2 by 3 inch. These are just nice to have in case you need to make sure that your tools are like calibrated. They're one of the most accurate things you could measure against. So I have another set of micrometers over here. These are just a different size. We have a piston ring compressor. In this box, just a piston ring filer. We won't need that for a bit. Now, I got all these tools on Amazon, and they were really affordable. Now I realize that the quality of an engine build is partially dependent on the accuracy of your tools. So what I did is I did a ton of research, read a bunch of reviews from people, and every one of these tools that I got was tested by some sort of machinist. They checked these tools that they got against their much more expensive high-end machinist tools, and most of the people that did that got really solid results from these, and they were results that I felt comfortable with. So yeah, I didn't want to break the bank for these tools, and so I didn't. So I'm gonna try it out, and you know, we'll see what happens. If I have issues, maybe we'll be able to trace it back to the tools creating the issue, but I kind of find that really doubtful. Over here on the whiteboard, we have our engine tolerances written down. I'm shooting for 0.002 to 0.03 on the mains, and then 0.002 on the rod bearings. So I'm just gonna clean it with some of this glass cleaner. If you are what you say you are, a superstar. So I'm start on the bottom and work my way up. The mains are the ones that go through the center, and where the rods connect are the ones that kind of sit on the outside here. So I'm gonna do this and take measurements like a few different times. So I'll like measure this one this way, take a measurement, and I'll measure it over here, and then I'll like measure it over here or something. And that way we'll know for sure we are getting the most accurate measurement. Trying to center this seems a little tricky, but we'll work it out. So I have 2.621, pretty spot on for what other people get from these cranks, so feeling pretty good about it so far. So now we're gonna do the second one. 2.3622 on our first measurement. Very similar to the other one, so that's good. I don't really know if it's smart to be taking averages like this, so maybe let me know in the comments if you have experience with this. 3622 plus 2.3616 plus 2.3624 equals divided by 3. So we get 2.3620. So that's main 2. 2.3620. 2.3638. Seems kind of large again. Try that one more time. All right guys, so I just went through and measured everything out on the rest of the crank. So all of our rods are measured out on the crank. I have all of our measurements up here, so mains, rods. As you can see, everything is like pretty dang close to each other, so that's good. It's good to see. Nothing's like wildly off. I think our crankshaft is nice and healthy, and hopefully our clearances will be within specs. We are going to bolt these together with our hardware. So let's just put these together. ARP's instructions say to put lube on all of the threads, and then also between the head of the bolt and the sealing washer, which are the ones with the kind of goldish looking washer or copper, whatever it is. And it's got this little red seal you can see on there. Those are the ones that go inside the water jackets. So put lube in between those. We're starting with the small ones, so I'm just gonna put a little dab. A little dab will do on the threads. Now I'm just gonna start threading these ones into the block. Just hand tight, because that's what it says to do. And then I believe this last shorty bolt goes back here. All right, we gotta get bearings installed in these cases. I jumped the gun and started putting them together without doing that. That's pretty fun. So I'll take this and just wipe these out of our freshly machined block. Wipe the whole thing down. Look at all these surfaces as well. Make sure we're as clean as we can be. All right. So I believe these front ones, or I should say rearmost ones, is the thrust. And these as well, I'm just going to give a good wipe down to. get any of that residue that they have on them. Goes right there. And I think there's two that are smaller than the others that go on the these middle two right here. We'll just start with these, making sure that the tangs align with the tang on the journal. See, there's a little tang that sticks off. That's what they're called, I guess. This piece is to go in this little groove right here. I'll give you a little close up in a minute. And then these last four are obviously a little bit wider than those first two we did, but same deal. Little wipe down, and then tang to tang here. Match them up. Now we can start throwing these things in. This side, I think there's just the two. And on this side, there should be four that live inside the water jackets like this. Little baby ratchet for the win. Okay, so I just wanted to discuss real quick some thoughts that I have on these ARP case bolts. They do concern me a little bit. That is because the torque specs for them are much higher than the OEM case bolts. So apparently what can happen is it can cause the center bore of the engine to make an egg shape rather than stay perfectly round. So apparently the way around that is to have it a line board with the ARP case bolts installed, so that way you know it's going to retain that shape perfectly. Now, this block was line honed when it was first built, according to the previous owner and their receipts for the machine work. It does show that on there. He did pay for that, but I haven't been that impressed with a lot of the work that's been done on this car thus far. I don't know the machine shop that he took it to. It's some random machine shop, and the guy was not a Subaru specialist, so that does worry me a little bit. And who knows if he knew to do it with the ARP fasteners in place and torqued down to ARP specifications. So there's just a lot of like unknowns. So what I'm planning on doing is using the ARP case bolts still, because I have them and they are good quality bolts. They're totally reusable and everything, so there's no issue there. But we're just gonna torque down to the OEM specs and not do the ARP specs. ARP, even on their installation directions here, even say at the bottom, some customers may choose to install the bolts at the factory torque specs without line honing the block, but they will not receive the full benefits of ARP's high strength fasteners. So yeah, it makes sense, you know, if you're not compressing it all the way to its potential, then you're still potentially going to have the case halves shifting and flexing and things more so than you would if you were tightening these all the way down to the 60 foot-pounds or whatever it is. But because I don't know the exact history of this engine, I just don't want to do that. I guess what we could do is we could just check it. You know, I did have the machine shop check the center of the block and tell me if he felt like it was round, and he did think that it looked pretty damn round still. It could be out like a slight bit, he said, but nothing that would really make much of a difference. So yeah, I didn't have him do that because he's not someone that can do it properly here. He doesn't have, you know, he doesn't have like the Subaru specialty stuff to align hone these blocks. I just take it to him to get them cleaned and decked. So any machine shop can pretty much do that, I think. But yeah, anyway, so I think we're just gonna stick with OEM specs and we'll see where our clearances are at. And if they're wildly off for some reason, like way too loose or something perhaps, maybe we'll just try to retorque down to ARP specs. So let's jump in, let's get these case halves torqued down and let's start checking our measurements. All right, so this is a sheet from the factory service manual. So there is a sequence to tightening the case bolts. So you can see you start on the left-hand side, you start in this sequence, you go A, B, C, D, tightening to 7.4 foot-pounds. Then we move to the right-hand side and continue on, still in alphabetical order. So on this first series, I need to use my Ghetto Fabulous torque wrench here. My big torque wrench doesn't go down to 7.4 foot-pounds. But that's okay. These torque wrenches actually work really freaking well for lower torque settings. Top and D. And then J. All right, now we're gonna go back to the other side, and this is where the torque will be a little bit different depending on the bolt that you're on. All right, so A, it looks like A and C, the ones in here, go to 14.8 foot-pounds, and then the ones over here, what does it say? 10.8 foot-pounds. So A, and then 10.8 foot-pounds, 0.8. On this one. Now we go back to the other side again. And now this side, it looks like we do E through J in alphabetical sequence again on the right side, but it's 14.8 and 13.3. So just H and J, which are these ones back here, will go to 13.3. The other one's 14.8. All right, and I just flipped it back around, and we're gonna go back through the entire alphabetical sequence again, just doing an additional 90 degrees. All right, now I'm gonna do all of these smaller bolts, the 10 mils, and we are going to go to 18.1 foot-pounds. Pull threads. What's going on here, dude? Look at that. Just pulled threads right out of there. Well, that sucks. Bottommost one right here, it just kind of kept turning. Yeah. Not really sure what we can do though about that. We're gonna have to, man, we're gonna have to take this back apart and throw in like a helicoil, which I've never done, so maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, so it actually pulled the threads on this top one too. Just check this out.
I have read that these ARP case bolts have a tendency to do this to your block threads. So yeah, so that kind of sucks. I gotta figure out how to repair those threads now.
All right guys, so it is the next day. I had to just take a break and walk away from this yesterday. After I stripped those 2 case threads out, I was definitely feeling the frustration. But even still, after I stripped those threads out, I went ahead and just checked the mains because I wanted to see how close my clearances were. I know that that isn't the most accurate way to do it because those 2 bolts are left out. However, those are the bolts that go in like the top and bottom of the cases right here. And they're smaller 8mm bolts. So I just don't think that they add a whole lot of clamping force. And what I figured out through doing that, these telescoping gauges are not the move. I think this is just like a Chicago brand, generic, super cheap telescoping bore gauge. And the problem is, even when I tighten the end down, I can still move these. See how yeah, these things are garbage. So like I can just really tighten this down and I'm still able to move these things. So I just didn't know how accurate my measurements were. But what I ended up doing today, went out and first of all, I got this thread repair kit because we need to fix those threads. And I went out and got a real dial bore gauge. Summit Racing had some high quality ones. Yeah, so these are just gonna give me a much more accurate read on our clearances. I'm gonna jump into trying to repair these threads. I've never done this before, so bear with me, but I will show you the process of me figuring it out. I did get a 21/64 inch bit because that is the size that you need for these little coils. Drilling into aluminum, aluminum. Feel like I could run away, run away. Oh my god, I'm finding more fucking 3-bond down there. Oh my lord. I just keep finding 3-bond. Alright, let's spritz a little WD in here. Just for some lubrication. I just want to go as straight as I can. Wow, that is so fucking... I don't know how we're gonna get the shavings out of the other one. I guess I could hit it with a vacuum. So I guess when you're doing this, you don't want to just like slam it through. Kind of want to go like in and then back and just kind of keep working it down. Take our little tool here. Should just be able to thread her right on in there. How to do. Got our little dial bore gauge all set up here. So on our micrometer, I have this set up to the exact measurement for our first main, which is 2.3615 inches. So that's what this is set to. And now I guess all you do is you set this in here and you zero it out. So get it right in the center, and I've already zeroed it out. You set it in there and then you turn this face till the zero is on the needle, and then you can stick it in the bore and see how much over or under your measurement is. I'm gonna try to set this in here so you can see it. On the tangs, looks like it's about
1.5 to 2 thou of clearance, so that's definitely within spec. Let's just keep going with this then. So now we gotta dial this back to 2.362, which is right here. And then re-zero this. We'll have to shove her down in this one. All right, that one's also 2 thou. So I just finished measuring out the rest of the mains. These are our clearances. Kind of a range on 1 and 5, it seemed like to me, but I think that's pretty typical, to be honest. So pretty much 2 thou across the board. And so now next, all we got to do is measure out our rod bearing clearances. I'm just going to give them a quick wipe down. Then we'll get our bearings put in. I guess one thing about these is that you don't want to get the caps mixed up. The way I understand it is these get line honed together, or align honed together, and so you don't want to mix them up. Put these in to their home, making sure that the tangs are all lined up. Tang to tang. The tang is that little indentation right there, and there's a little like fin on the side of the bolt there. So we'll mate these two together. I do need to check the ARP specs. Let's just sluice this in there. Okay. Seems fairly steady. I'm gonna do these in 3 equal steps, so 30, 60, 90. There's 30. If I can do this and just hold it, but we'll try. Oh, there can be only one. Yeah. Give her a little wipey, sweepy. So have the micrometer dialed in for the measurement that we took on rod number 1 from the crank. And so we zeroed that out. And now I'm just measuring the rods. So let's see if I can put this in a way that you'll be able to see it. Push this down in there. Straight up and down right there. About 2 thou. It's right on the money. That's where we want to be. Yeah. I'm honestly just going to, I think, measure all these right now. Yeah, this one's like right at 2 thou as well. Because I got 2.070. So 070 on all of the rods from the crank. So the crank measurements for the rods were all 070. So as long as these are all around 2 thou, should be good to go. Yeah, this one looks looking good too. All right guys, so I just wanted to show you real quick. I just measured the dial bore gauge out off of the measurement for my piston. I just measured all 4 of them just to make sure that they're all the same, and they are. So zeroed it off of that. I'm checking the bores, and we want right about 2.5 thou, which is like, we're like on the money. Yep. Right there, yeah, pretty freaking sweet, man. I mean, and it's no surprise, right? This was sleeved for those particular pistons, so, but I just wanted to make sure because, you know, it'd be better to catch it now than later on after we have it all built. That would suck, wouldn't it?
All right, guys, so I have been out here just racking my brain trying to figure out why the hell I have gotten the measurements that I got on the outer crank journals where the connecting rods mount. Just ignore the line going through, but I was getting 2.070 basically on all of the connecting rod journals. Getting super confused because I checked my measurements against what other people get on these same crankshafts. It seemed like everyone was getting 2.040 something or whatever. It was just 0.04 and I wasn't even anywhere near that. So that was really bugging me because I still measured my clearances to be within spec on the connecting rods themselves. So that part I kind of figured wasn't such a big deal because if I measure out that crankshaft and it's this distance right here, and then I set the bore gauge to 0 out on that and then put it inside the bore of the connecting rod here, obviously whatever that distance was on the micrometer, it's just measuring against that distance regardless of what number I calculated. So even if I was reading the number wrong or something and it was 2.07 whatever, this could still be, you know, just 2 thou over. I figured out was that I was in fact reading the micrometer incorrectly, and all of those measurements that I have up there are actually 2.04. I feel way more comfortable because now I know that like there's nothing messed up with my crank and my numbers are making sense and I am actually measuring stuff correctly. That line, even though I can see it peeking out, I shouldn't have been counting towards the value because we haven't hit the 0 yet. So a little confusing, I know. And obviously a digital micrometer would make it way easier to not make that mistake. But I'm glad that I have these because, you know, I wanted to be able to read the analog ones and understand how to use them. And this is why I always kind of try to live by the concept of experience is the best teacher. This is a prime example of that. I would not have known to double check the way I was reading these had those measurements not kind of stuck out to me and not made sense, which caused me to go back and investigate a little bit and make sure that I'm not doing something wrong. The beauty of it is that even if I hadn't noticed that those numbers were off, having that bore gauge is really a lifesaver because that's why I was spinning my wheels with those telescoping gauges, because I was sticking it down in the bore and then I was measuring it against these and I wasn't getting even close to spec that I needed for clearance, and it was just because that initial number was off on the rod. So yeah, I mean, I do think that investing the money in a good bore gauge was the move. This was kind of expensive. It was almost 200 bucks. So, I mean, I don't know, like you can get away with not having one, but it seems like it was definitely the right move. I wanted to do this on a budget and not have to spend money on like tons of like super precise tools, because who knows if I'll want to do this again. I likely will. This has actually been pretty damn fun. But sometimes to do things right, you just got to invest the money. And I tried to get away with it. It didn't quite work, but now I know. Anyway, I'm just going to go through and check everything one more time now that I know that I was using these incorrectly, just to be sure and double check all of my work on all of my clearances. We're even going to do the case. It's still bolted together down here, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, I'm just going to knock that out real quick. I'll show you where everything ends up on the board over here as far as our case clearances, rod clearances, and everything like that go. And then we will start working on our end gap for our piston rings here. All right, guys, so here is the final numbers. 362 on the mains, like 1 through 4, and then I did get 3615 220 on the on number 5.
which kind of makes sense to me. I guess number 5 can be a little weird sometimes, but still within spec, so not too worried about it. Rods, obviously, probably don't need that 4th decimal, but that's what they were after correcting how I was reading those measurements. And so our case clearance here we had on the mains, 1 through 4 was 0015 to 002, which I did end up changing my main bearings. I was trying to, what I was shooting for was actually closer to the 0015. Number 5 was on the money. Every time I measured it and repeated it, I was getting that. So I think one time I got 0.0014, so pretty on point with that one. These are still within spec as well. I think you just want to be careful. I think going larger clearance than 0.002, I was reading, can be a little sketchy with these alloy blocks. As it heats up, it's going to expand. If your main bearing clearances are a little too loose to begin with, once that thing heats up, you might have something that's even looser. A lot of people tend to do is just run looser clearances and use a thicker oil. But with this engine, we are running the AVCS system, and the AVCS system does demand a slightly thinner oil. And so if you get your clearances opened up too much to where you need a thicker oil, you might run into issues with your AVCS system running properly. So we want to avoid that because we do want to retain that system and get the most out of this engine. Rod clearances as well. I was shooting for 002 and we ended up 0025 across the board on those. Still within spec though, because Manly does recommend between 002 and 003. 0025 is right in the center, so it's within spec, so I feel good about it. All right, so first I'm going to get this thing super clean again. Spray out all these little passageways. And after we do this, I will hit it with some compressed air. Seems like a lot of people like to use this Permatex Ultra Slick assembly lube, so that's what I went with. I guess you can be pretty liberal with this stuff, because before you build any oil pressure, this is what all your bearings are gonna be running on. So you can get it on there all thick. Clean off the bearing surface. God, this stuff's sticky. It's pretty funny. And we'll do it all with the logos facing forward, so that means towards the bolt. A little easier to bolt tang to tang. I'm not tightening these, just getting them all the way in. All right, got them all mounted up, and now I'm just gonna go through and see if I can get these all torqued down to the 90 foot-pounds. It definitely seems like it might be easier in the vise. Last but not least, 90. This one was the one that we tapped those threads in. Definitely want to make sure to blow out those holes. Probably should. Yeah, I just heard metal spray against the. I'm just gonna give it one final wipe down. Next, we got to put these O-rings in the case. 4 of these little seals. So one goes right here. And then these other 3, they're symmetrical on both sides. You can just, oh shit. So you can just pop them in either way. Like so. I'm just gonna lube up all of the bearings. So just put like a nice little dab. Man, this stuff really likes to get all stringy. I'm going to try to not get it between the case halves like that right there. I'm going to also lube up the journals on the crank real quick. So this is that. There we go. And it's in. I did check these too, by the way, for like up and down play. There's no up and down play. We have the slightest bit of side to side play. So I feel like we're pretty solid. All right guys, I just did one final wipe down where all of the sealant goes. And now I'm going to start laying down some 3-bond. I have the factory service manual here, the page printed out, just shows you the path of how you take this stuff. So we're gonna go for it. Like a pretty small bead, and then probably spread it around with my finger, just so we don't have a bunch of like squeeze out. That ends up in the oil pan. So I just finished all of the sealant and then smoothed it all out everywhere with my finger. I feel like I got like a nice consistent layer that's not too thick, because I know you can put this on a little too thick and get so much of that like out squeeze that ends up breaking off and ending up in the oil pan and clogging your oil pickup, and I want to avoid that. So hopefully this is enough and it won't leak. All right, here goes nothing. Set you straight up. Stay, stay, stay. Let's give her a little tap. There we go. Put a couple of these case bolts in through the top here, just so we make sure to keep it all together. If any of you guys have a really good eye, you may notice that I have changed up. What's going on here? That I've changed up the case bolts I'm using. I decided to go back to the OEM case bolts. I had a spare set laying around, and I had new, what do you call it, sealing washers, and so I decided to do that. I was feeling a little weird about the, oh
God, this has just got a lot heavier. Feeling a little weird about using the ARP stuff. Okay. Now we'll go through, torque this all down to spec. All right guys, so I have our engine case all set up and ready to go. I did go ahead and get one piston already dropped in. And now I have a slight issue that needs to be dealt with real quick. So this is my little wrist pin retainer clip tool. So this goes into the holes right there on the clip, and you can squeeze it, obviously like pliers, to compress the ring and get it into the spot there. Now, this tool just keeps getting blocked right at this point. So I'm like holding it here and it hits. I can't get the tool deep enough to put the pin in. So I was actually having this problem when I was tearing the engine down, and I had to like grab like 2 little picks and hold on with each hand to compress the pin to get it out. So I'm gonna modify this tool. I'm actually just gonna cut these little flanges off because this thing actually hooks on down here. And then we should be able to get it in there to put the other wrist pin retainer clip on. Let's see if this will work now. Ooh, not quite, but better. Shaved her down a little bit more. Let's see if that's gonna work. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. Whoa. Make sure it's all the way into its little home and its little groove, which it seems like it is. We are all good. Sweet. The JE piston rings that go with the JE pistons. The silver looking ones are the top ring. The black one with there's like a little edge on it, that's the scraper ring. What's cool about this is that JE provides how to figure out your ring gap for your top and second ring. So what they do is they give you the application here, and obviously we are doing street moderate turbo or nitrous. That's the application that I went with. It seemed like the most appropriate, and it's the bore times 0.005 inches for the top ring and the bore times 0.0055 inches for the second ring. Just get it nice and oily in here so that we don't scratch up this cross hatching. The end will face up, so I'm just going to stick it in the bore like this, turn it. On the last one, I kind of got it pretty close to the top. These pistons that I have a orientation left and right side of the engine, so these are the left ones for the left case side. And now I'm just going to push this in here and get it all level. And this was the thing that I was curious about, like how far down the board should I go with it? I mean, it shouldn't matter if it's completely symmetrical all the way down, but hard to say. So now I have it placed in there. It's all even, and you can see that gap right there in the ring. So we're gonna test that with a feeler gauge. I have my feeler gauges here. So this top ring, 0.018. I really don't think that's even close, so I'm gonna start with something pretty low. This is 0.014. And that does slide in, but it's a pretty snug, tight fit. Come on.
Still too tight. Keep going. Guys, so I went back and forth a few times. And now we have our 0.018 feeler gauge, and it slides right in. Well, at least I thought it did. Oh, yep, there it is. It's a snug fit, which I think that's okay. I'd rather it be snug. 020 is what we're shooting for. Let's just try the 018. 018 slides in really smooth, so sheesh, hopefully it's small enough. Here's 020. Ooh. This is what happened to the last one. I didn't even have to grind it. It was just on the money from the start. Kind of trips me out a little that they're perfectly the right size, but I'm not going to question it. The numbers are the numbers, right? Like, all right, now I'm going to put the rings on the piston here, and I'll show you what I figured out. So first of all, there is an orientation to where you position the gaps, and that is shown here. So bottom oil ring rail gap. You know, so what's cool about these pistons, I think most pistons are like this too, there's an arrow with front labeled that direction. So you know, like, that's the front. So if you're looking at it, so for you guys looking at it that way, the piston would be like that. So your bottom oil ring rail gap would like be over here. So what that means is if you were to put this bottom oil ring on, the gap, you don't have to be facing right there. Whereas like the second oil ring, second compression ring gap, they're saying dead sideways on the side there. So you just want to have them staggered appropriately. And the other thing that took me a minute to figure out yesterday when I was working on this was I didn't put this ring on there first. I actually, this is the oil ring expander is what it's called. And there's a range right here. So we'll go like this, put that on first. And the reason this was weird yesterday is because I didn't put this on first and I couldn't get the other rings to fit. So bottom oil ring gap, that's gonna go like over here. These ones I've been doing just by hand without the little tool, but it's because they're just so flimsy. And these ones are a little tricky, a little finicky, but you just gotta be gentle and patient. So you grab another one of these, and we'll go like this. Perfect. And now the second compression ring, so that's the black one. We want the writing facing up. This is just a little piston ring expander. I actually got this at O'Reilly, so you can get these most auto parts stores, I believe. So second compression ring is gonna go this side. So I'm just gonna turn this towards me, expand this thing down, and just slot it in place. All right, there we are. Expander, set her inside. This thing was a little tricky to use on the first one. So what I did is I kind of got it a little bit snug, and then I pulled it up a little bit and just tried to get it like super even at like the top of the skirt. Take this guy, I'll just start tapping right in the center. Boom. That one went real nice. Now we just need to get the rod and the piston hole lined up so we can push the wrist pin in. Now, as you can see, we have everything totally lined up, and we should be able to slot that wrist pin right in. All right, so I got our wrist pin all lubed up with some engine oil. We are going to just try to send this thing. Oh, there we go. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta kind of like move it back and forth because the piston can kind of turn, and if it's turned slightly, it just doesn't want to go. But you shouldn't have a lot of resistance if it's nice and lined up. Short block is all put together. Let's try to spin the crank. We might be able to hear it making a little bit of compression, hopefully. Oh, yeah. That's so sick. Wow. Everything seems pretty good. Really, really happy to have this done and to just get the experience building one of these. I do want to say that I do want to just let you guys know that this was not just done over like one single day, especially the first time doing it. I just really took my time. This was done over several days. I didn't want to rush through it. I wanted to make sure I was doing my due diligence and checking and rechecking things multiple times, as well as making sure that I had done enough research and enough reading and watched enough tutorials to get the job done in the best way I could with the tools and the space and the resources that I have. So I think it's easy to get sucked into the whole YouTube world of seeing people just like crank stuff out, because the power of editing, you have no idea really what the time frame was. So it's easy to get sucked into thinking that like you're no good if you can't do this in a couple hours or something. And I just think that that's not the case. And I think that most people that probably put these together, even builders that have been doing it a long time, probably also take their time, and they're probably not doing it in a super short amount of time, at least not at first. Maybe over time you can progress to just having it so dialed that you can just knock it out, and I'm sure that's possible. But that's what this channel is all about, inspiring other people to do things themselves and just try new things like this, even if it's kind of scary to dive in and see if you can figure it out. I didn't know anything about these cars before I just started tearing them apart and messing with them and tinkering. I just don't want any of you that are watching that have never done this before to get discouraged thinking that like, you know, I distill this down into like 30 or 40 minutes and it just seems like I just busted it out. It's not usually the case, man. So that's why sometimes these videos are really hard to get out every single week, because sometimes certain things like paintwork I have to spend a couple weeks on, and sometimes it's just not worth it to put a video that doesn't have like a good start and finish to it, because it's just gonna be kind of boring. Those are just the kind of final thoughts I wanted to share with you guys before I wrap up this video.
I am really stoked to have this done. I'm really stoked to keep moving forward. I do have some things that I need to order before we can do the long block, but I have so many things to do on this car still. We have to reinstall all the exterior trim that we took off from the paint. I need to start reinstalling things underneath the undercarriage, like the subframes and all the suspension components and things like that. So we have a lot of work to knock out on this thing, and I'm gonna keep moving forward every single week until it's done, even if we're not doing just straight engine stuff until completion. I like to jump back and forth between things. I know other channels maybe don't do that, but that's just kind of my style. Variety is the spice of life, you know? So I just want to thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you watching this video. It's probably gotten pretty long, but I just wanted to share my very first experience doing this in as much detail as possible without boring you to death. So I do appreciate you guys watching, and think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, especially if you want to see more on this build, because there is a lot more to come. And I'm just gonna try to keep leveling this up and leveling up the production quality and sharing as much as I can that I think would be interesting for people to watch and hopefully maybe even get something out of. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, everybody.